In line 1 and 2 that we did yesterday, Anmol, the poet has expressed the opinion of the people, the thoughts of the people, two thoughts. The one group of people, they say that they think that the world will end due to fire. Fire that represents desires of the man, greed of the man, avarice of the man. And there is another group of people who think that the world will end with ice. Ice that represents unfeelingness, hatred, unemotional, insensitivity of the human beings. Right? I think Garv has come. Yes, Garv has also come. Yes, Garv.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Yes, good afternoon. We have just started. You didn't miss anything. Okay? We are just recapitulating line 1 and 2. So this is what I was discussing. In line 1 and 2, the poet has expressed the two thoughts the people have, or two assumptions the people have about the end of the world. One thought is that the world will end with fire, meaning desires or greed. And the second thought is that the world will end with ice, meaning the humans' hatred, insensitivity, and being unemotional. Right? Now, this is what the people believe, what the poet himself thinks, and which thought does he support? Does he go with fire or he goes with ice? This is what he expresses in the next two lines, line 3 and 4. In line 3 and 4, the poet says, "From what I have tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire." When he says, "From what I have tasted of desire," he has tasted of desire, meaning he has experienced. He has experienced the desires. He has the knowledge. Because of his experience, he knows how we have so many desires. And in order to fulfill those desires, what we humans do, we are unable to control them. Then what is the outcome of the action or the course of fulfilling those desires? So this is what he is telling you, that he has the experience, and on the basis of that experience, he says, I hold with those. I hold with those, meaning he supports. He supports, he agrees with those people who favor fire, who think that the world will end with fire. Is that clear? Now, why the poet think that on the basis of his experience? What is his experience? He has experienced desires. He has felt that he had the ambition, he had the aspiration. He experienced that, yes, we commit mistakes, we make mistakes. Why? Just to fulfill our desires, because we humans are so selfish that our motive is just to fulfill our desires, even at the cost of moral values. We just ignore our moral values and we keep on committing one or the other mistakes. A young boy, say 25 or 26 years old, he is chasing you when you are traveling in a bus, right? You get down from the bus, he still chases you. Why? Because he wants to rob you. He is waiting. When you take out your mobile phone and you use your mobile phone, the moment you do it, what he does, he snatches the mobile phone from you and he runs away. Do you understand what it means? The example I'm giving?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Why does he rob you of that mobile phone?
Ma'am, because he desired the phone. He
has a strong desire for a mobile phone. He cannot control it. He cannot afford it. He doesn't have money to do it. So in order to fulfill that desire, Garv, what does he do?
Stealing the phone.
Right. He robs you. He steals. He snatches your phone. So what is it? He is doing this mistake. This is the crime. This is the sin that he is committing. And that will lead to the destruction of the world. Now you see, the destruction of the world does not mean only the physical destruction of the world, but this is moral degradation also. When there is moral degradation of the world, automatically, physically also, the world would completely be wiped away. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So what is important here? What he means to say here, that why we do so, because we allow our emotions to rule us. When we allow our emotions to rule us, when we are unable to control our emotions, we are unable to control our desires. If we cannot control our desires, then we would keep on committing one or the other mistake. We would keep on committing one or the other sin. And then it will bring disaster in the world, and the world would be approaching its end. I hope it is clear.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Now let me read what I have written here. In these lines, the poet supports those people who believe that fire is the cause of that end of the world. He says, I hold, meaning I support. With those meaning those people who favor, who think, who believe that fire is the cause of the end of the world. His knowledge and experience of this feeling. He says, I have tasted of desire. So that tasted of desire meaning he has knowledge and experience of those desires. And his this knowledge and experience, they make him accept that desire can be a cause of destruction. At times, you see that what it is, one example of that young boy I gave you, you see, so many times we lie to each other. We know it is wrong, yet we do it. Why? Because this would be helping me or you to fulfill one of my desires. So this is the reality. The poet knows what it means to have desires. The poet knows, he experiences, he understands. What does it mean? He understands what the outcome would be, what the result would be if I have desires. Fire is used in reference to the animal tendencies in us. Fire, the word has been used because of aggression. And that aggression is just like animal tendency. Animals, they are fast, they are quick, they are prompt. Right, so are we. When we have desires we are unable to control, we just don't think anything. We don't think it is going to harm the other ones. We have just the sole motive, that is to fulfill this. Just like the animals. We have that animal tendency, means killing tendencies. We have that harmful tendencies in us. Why? Because we are materialistic people. Why? Because we are selfish people. All these emotions are associated with heat of emotions. With heat of emotions is aggression. With heat of emotions is extreme. When we have an extreme desire, a strong urge to do something or to acquire something, then we just stoop down to any level. At that time, what happens? Even the values, even the lessons which we have been taught by our elders throughout our life, we just compromise with them also. We just forget them also. Here, desire could mean ambitions, aspirations, gluttony, greed, etc. Desire meaning, when do you have desires? When you become ambitious. When you become ambitious. You become ambitious to score good, right? You want notes from your friend. You are afraid your friend would not share. So what you do, without telling your friend, you just take away the notes. A good friend of you. But later on, when the friend discovers, then what happens? There is the rift between you two. Your relations are affected. So what is this result of this indifference between you two? It is because of that desire, right? Aspirations and gluttony. Gluttony is extremely greedy. When we are extremely greedy, how for the sake of money, what the people are doing. The son throws his father away just for the sake of property. So what is this? This is the desire that brings disaster. So what is important is to control our irrelevant desires. If we do not control, then of course, what will happen? This would be the end of the world. This would lead us to the end of the world, right? We commit mistakes, or so to say, sins, just to fulfill our desires. I've already given you example. We do not contemplate our future, that our fiery passions may result in catastrophic end of the world. When we make mistakes, when we commit sins, when we are engaged in a crime just to fulfill our desires, at that time, we do not think about our future. We just ignore. We are not far-sighted at that time. We never realize that the strong urge to acquire, to fulfill our desire, how destructive it is going to be. It is leading me towards the destructive end of the world or destructive end of my life. I just forget it. Or we humans just forget it. It can harm other people, animals, plants, or nature. Yes, that is very true. It can harm other people. How it is harming? In summers, there is shortage of water. If we do not use water judiciously, what will happen? Not only me, many other people will also not get it. But no, when I am using, I will not think of other people. My motive is just to get water for me. So here what it is, we the humans, we are selfish. This is our desire to use these resources. We just forget about other people. We just forget about the other lives that we have around us, that they would also be affected. That's what we have done to our environment. This is the self-motive of the humans. This is the strong desires of the humans, which they are not able to control, that we are facing today: global warming, climate change, polluted cities, and whatnot. Completely adverse shape of our environment. And who is responsible for that? We are responsible for that. We are not thinking of our future generation when we exhaust the environmental resources, natural resources. Our elders, our ancestors have given us so many things. What are we going to give to our future generations? We don't think about it. Why? Because we have desires, uncontrollable desires. This happens when we let our emotions rule us. So when we allow our emotions to rule us, meaning when we do not check our emotions, our desires, then it happens. It means we cannot control our desires. That is true. Sensible are those, wise are those who can control their desires. Those who cannot control their desires, they would definitely have a bleak future. This is what, and all the nations, the countrymen of a particular country, if they don't learn it, that country is also going to have a dark fate. This is what we have to think. I hope it is clear.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Anything, any idea, any line which is not clear?
No, ma'am.
Shall I go to the next?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now this is stanza 2, line 1 to 5. Yes, but if it had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to say that for destruction, ice is also great and would suffice. Now, what is this? The poet here says, but if it had to perish twice, if it had to perish meaning it had to end. Perish is just wipe away, finish, die. If it refers to the world. If the world had to perish twice, meaning if the world does not end with fire, right? And then how is it going to end? If it does not end completely with fire, then there is another element also that would be responsible for the destruction of this world. Now here, one thing you see that this line reflects a firm belief of the poet that the world will definitely end ultimately. Isn't it? We have not yet come on to the conclusion what will be responsible for the end of the world. But the poet means to say that this is for sure that the world will end one day. It will end with fire, with desires of the man, with the selfishness of the humans. And if it does not end completely with that, then the humans' hatred would destroy this world. I think I know enough of hate. He said, I have tasted desire, meaning he had experienced in the previous lines. Here he says, I think I know enough of hate. He has experienced ice also. He has experienced hatred also. He has the experience, he has that lesson of hatred also, on the basis of what to say. He says he believes that for destruction, ice is also great. Ice can also destroy the world, and ice would be enough. Suffices is from sufficient. Ice would also be sufficient to destroy the world. Now, how ice? Because ice represents hatred. Hatred, which is a cold feeling. Hatred, when you don't like, when you dislike other. When you dislike other, when you are jealous of others because of their success, because of their richness, or it can be any reason. And this hatred gives birth to enmity, unpleasantness, harshness. Again, definitely animal tendencies as well. And then what happens? The warlike situation, the rivalry happens, the warlike situation happens. Then the two people, the two groups, the two tribes, the two countries, two nations, They war, they fight with each other. And this would affect the world. This would affect everything that exists on the world. You see that what is happening between, again, I will remind you of this, what is happening between Russia and Ukraine. It's not only that Russians or Ukrainians are being affected, we all are being affected. Do you think we are being affected?
Yes, ma'am.
How are we being affected?
Ma'am, by emotionally.
Okay. All right. What else? What else? You see, when the two countries are warring with each other, they are fighting with each other, it is affecting the resources, the natural resources, right? If you just watch the news channels and you listen to the news, you will get to know how the prices of everything hiking, increasing. Why? Because petrol price hikes, diesel price hikes. When these prices increase, then the worldwide the economy is affected. Isn't it? Apart from that, the people of Ukraine, they are leaving their country to take shelter in other countries. The other countries, with their solidarity with those countries, with their solidarity to Ukraine, they are giving shelter to those refugees. Their economy will definitely be affected by this. Isn't it? And if they don't, then what would happen? If they don't, then so many lives will be lost. And Russia knows all these results, yet they have not yet stopped the war, which reflects what? Their hatred, their complete insensitivity. The human insensitivity we are talking about here. So they are the best example of this insensitivity. Right? Is that clear?
Yes.
Ma'am.
Okay. Now let's read here. In the first line, it refers to the world. According to the poet, if the world is not destroyed completely by fiery passions, that is human desires, the ice would destroy this. Ice, cold feeling, cold-blooded. The Russians appear to be cold-blooded now to us, though India has always very good relations with Russia. We had never seen this part of Russia, this image of Russia. But when we see Ukraine today, then of course we think that ice is Russia, cold-blooded Russia and Russians and Russian president, right? What is the real cause of the war? We don't know. There are so many possibilities, but whatever they are doing, it is highly insensitive. It would be destroyed by ice, that is hatred and insensitivity of humans. These lines suggest that the poet has experienced hatred or envy also. The poet is being honest to his readers. This reflects the poet's honesty. In the last lines also, when he says, I have tasted desires, desires that makes the man selfish. The poet admits that yes, he experiences desires. I think we all experience desires, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
We all experience the same. So here again, he confesses, he admits that he also has an experience of hatred. Perhaps sometimes he also might have kept that ill feeling for others. Hatred is taken to be an ice-cold emotion. Ice-cold, why it is an ice-cold emotion? You hate others when you are indifferent to others. When you are indifferent to others. Right? I just give you an example here, you know, what happens when we talk about India, Pakistan. Definitely, the mention of Pakistan itself, that spirit, that feeling of hatred comes in our mind and heart, isn't it? Right? But when we meet them face to face, you will find them like us only. Because our culture is also the same, the language is almost the same. We hardly find any difference. And we just forget that hatred. Right? We just forget that hatred for some time. But when we have the hatred, then what do? Whenever there are the terrorist attacks, we always say Indian soldiers should not spare Pakistan. They should kill them. They should destroy them. This is the kind of thing we talk about, isn't it? Why do we talk like this?
Because we have hate about Pakistan when they are
right, because we hate that country. But I tell you, the reality is not the same, because I remember, I'll share with you, whenever I had conducted in my school the video conferences for my students, right? International video conferences. So whenever my students, they had an interaction with Pakistani students, after the video conference ended, my students would always tell me, ma'am, where is the difference? They are like us, we are like them. And it had always been a very friendly interaction, very pleasant interaction, very fruitful interaction between the two. And they never felt that hatred or that enmity at that time. Right? So you see that how otherwise they are very warm to each other. We are very warm to each other. But the moment we have that feeling of hatred, we start displaying those animal tendencies. And we start thinking about, we start talking about destruction only. Isn't it? So this is what he says, his experience of keeping hatred has taught him how disastrous it can be. That's why Gandhiji had said, if you cannot love one, you should not hate also. Because if you do not love someone, it's not going to harm him. But if you hate one, then it is going to be disastrous. Right? Because he has experienced all this. When a man is selfish and thinks only about himself, he does not care about others. So you see that at the border, during the war, when our soldiers face the enemy, this is that hatred actually that makes them aggressive, and they are able to kill or attack or harm the enemy soldiers. This is that hatred actually. Because that time we have that hatred, the soldiers, they have that hatred, oh, they are enemies. So our motive is to kill them. This hatred actually makes them kill the other soldiers. I hope you understand.
Yes, ma'am.
Hatred kills humanity, love, affection in man. If warmth of emotions is lost, everything is lost. And this leads to disasters and destructions. When can be there the feeling of love? When there is warmth. If we have warm feelings, if we have warm emotions, then there would be no problems. It would be a very amiable environment. But when warmth of the relations or emotions is lost, then it would result in destruction only, clashes, wars, rift, enmity. All these things happen. In the last line, the poet has emphasized on the fact that passions or emotions in the form of desires, hatred, and greed in human nature are enough to cause destruction in the world or to cause an apocalypse. So the poet says how the world is going to end. The world is going to end by these feelings. We say the world is going to end with this by the Third World War. No. If ice and fire are controlled, children, there would be no war actually. Don't you think? If
Yes.
desires are controlled, if there is no hatred, then what will happen? There will be no wars. And if there is no war, there is no threat to the world. This world would survive. This world would continue existing. Rather, it would flourish. Isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
I hope it is clear.
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
ma'am.
Can I move to the next?
Yes, ma'am.
So now the poem we have concluded. Here is the theme of the poem. Right? Yes. Gar, would you please read the theme of the poem?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
The major theme of this poem is the human passion that desire and hatred are like fire and ice. Fire symbolizes desire and ice stands for hatred. The poet is familiar with both and knows that both are strong enough to end the world. That is the human race. The poem revolves around the human emotions. This poem is like a warning for humans to have self-restraint. According to the scientists, the earth would be burnt because the sun exploded. Or if the earth would manage to escape this calamity, the opposite would happen. It would freeze up in the depths of the universe. Robert Frost uses a sarcastic tone to warn us about the dangers that planet Earth could face if we do not keep our desires and negative emotions in control. Humans have raided the planet in an attempt to satisfy their desires. We cut trees, pollute the air, water, and land just to get and experience the things we want. We do this without consideration what effect it will have on nature. Humans, in their bid to know things and gain power, become so insensitive that they end up fighting with each other. This has been evident in the wars that have been fought throughout human history. We should strive to keep human values alive. We should keep our desires and hatred in check. Desires can be controlled by being satisfied and happy with what one has. Love for all human beings and nature can be an antidote for hatred.
Yes, perfect. Very well read, Gav. Yes, both of you. Is everything clear now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So now you see that if you get a long question or from this poem, that if fire and ice are the cause of destruction or cause of the end of the world, how can this cause be avoided? Then you see towards the end of the theme, we have given this, right? What? This has been evident in the wars that have been fought throughout human history. We should strive to keep human values alive. We should strive to keep human values alive. How we can keep them alive? When we shun hatred, when we shun violence, when we shun desires, we should keep our desires and hatred in check, meaning we have to control them. Desires can be controlled by being satisfied. If we are content with what we have, we would not have limitless desires, right? And we would live a happy life. And love for all living beings and nature can be an antidote for hatred. Antidote for hatred, it is a remedy for hatred. What? Love all living beings, nature, everything. Don't give any passage, any way to hatred. And then this world will be a beautiful place to live. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
The poem is a bit difficult. In fact, if honestly speaking, from examination point of view, a few things, if you think you need, you must learn them by heart. Okay? Yes. Now here it is, the poetic devices used in the poem, right? You have the poem with you. You will see these are the poetic devices used. I hope you are familiar with these poetic devices.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Garv, are you familiar with these poetic devices?
Yes, ma'am.
Alliteration, right? Here is alliteration. I've given the definition here, but since you are familiar with this, I don't think it is required to repeat the definition. If there is any poetic device which is new to you, please tell me right now.
Ma'am, third one.
Enjambment. Okay. Yes, Garv. Are you familiar with all these?
Ma'am, last one.
Symbolism. Okay. Fine. I'll see to it. Alliteration, where one consonant sound is repeated. Some say world will favor fire. Here some say SS. They are repeating. The sound is repeating. World will. W sound is repeating. Favor fire. F sound is repeated. Now, when you get in the examination, a line is given or a stanza is given, and you are told to identify the poetic device and present it, right? How you are going to present it? You are going to present it like this. Usually what happens, you people write alliteration, that's all, but examiner in the board examination will not give you full mark. Because it is from the poem, you write alliteration and put a small hyphen, and then you write the line and underline where you think is the alliteration. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Do remember, otherwise you will not get full mark. You will think, अरे मैंने तो alliteration लिखा था, मैम ने alliteration ही बताया था. But how you are presenting your answer, that is also important. Okay? Yes, anaphora. Anaphora, the repetition of a word or expression at the start of two or more consecutive lines. So here in the first stanza, if you see, the first two lines, some say, the word some say in eyes, some say has been repeated right in the beginning. Okay? Enjambment. Yes, enjambment is a continuation of a sentence without any pause, without any punctuation mark, actually, Anmol. Is that clear? When there is no punctuation mark towards the end of a line or a sentence, it means it continues. Are you getting this, Anmol?
Yes, ma'am.
Now I will just draw your attention. If you have the book, you will see this. Some say the world will end in fire. Some say in ice. After fire, there is no punctuation mark. Isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Some say in ice. After ice, there is full stop. Right? So the enjambment is here in this example because after fire, it continues as some say in ice without any pause. When there is a punctuation mark, meaning there is a pause, there is no pause. Similarly, next two lines, if you see, from what I have tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. Do you think there is enjambment or not?
Ma'am, there is.
There is, very good. There is enjambment because again, that pause is not there. I hope it is clear now.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now imagery. Imagery is when you visualize the things in your mind. When you visualize the things, when you see the things, when you feel, when you touch, then it creates a kind of vivid picture in your mind that is called imagery. So here we find imagery When we say, some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice. We visualize the world getting destroyed by fire or by ice. Clear? Metaphor is an indirect comparison. You know very well, fire and ice both are metaphors, right? Fire is the metaphor of desire, ice is the metaphor of hatred. All right. Now, rhyming scheme, you see, fire, ice, AB, desire, fire, AA, twice hate, BC, okay, and then ice, great, this is BC again, and suffice, B again. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, symbolism. Yes, girl. Symbolism is something new for you. Symbolism is, girl, something which represents something, right? Just as, for example, fire. When we say fire, it does not mean burning fire, actually. The word has been used, fire, but actually it is expressing fiery emotions, fiery feelings, right? And that fiery emotions or fiery feelings is heat of the emotions. So it is so extreme that it has been described as fire, as a burning fire. I hope it is clear.
Yes, ma'am.
So fire is symbolic of desires. Fire cannot be controlled. Desires cannot be controlled. Isn't it? And then ice is symbolic of hatred. Now, ice here is not ice actually that we have, that we can touch. Ice here meaning just as ice is cold, it cannot be felt. Similarly, hatred is that cold feeling. So that's how ice is symbolic of hatred. I hope it is clear.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Anything else? Any problem?
No, ma'am.
Any doubt, girl? Is everything clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay then. Thank you very much.